Chosen one, there is something I need to tell you about the season you just came through, because I don't think anyone has said this to you yet. Not clearly, not fully, not with the weight it actually deserves. For the past months, and you know exactly which ones I mean, you were being tested. Not in the way you might imagine a test to look. No burning bush, no handwriting on the wall, no clear moment where a voice said, "This is the trial, choose wisely." It came in disguise, through the unexplained heaviness that arrived one morning and simply didn't leave, through prayers that felt like they were going somewhere and then fell silent, through people who stayed when you expected them to go, and others who left when you needed them most, through doors that wouldn't open, and through your response to that, what you quietly chose to do when the door stayed closed. Every single one of those moments was a question. And every single time, in the quiet, in the uncertainty, in the absence of any reward or any confirmation, you answered it correctly. You didn't know you were in a test. That was the entire point. Because this is how God refines the ones He trusts with the next chapter. Not under perfect conditions, not with a clear label, not in the dramatic moments where every choice feels obvious and important. In disguise, in the ordinary, in the places no one celebrates and no one witnesses. You walked through it faithfully. And today, I want to show you exactly what was being tested and exactly what passing it means for your life now. Before we go further, stay with me through this entire message, because what I am about to walk you through is not just encouragement. By the time we reach the end, you are going to understand the 5 specific tests that were placed in front of you during this season, and how each one of them was disguised as something else entirely. You are going to understand what passing those tests has quietly qualified you for. And you are going to carry something real out of this conversation, something that changes the way you see everything that just happened to you. So stay. This matters more than you know. Now, before I show you what the tests were, I need you to understand something first. And this is the part that most people miss entirely. Not everyone goes through this kind of testing. I mean that with full seriousness. This is not generic spiritual difficulty. This is not the kind of hardship that comes to every person equally, the way rain falls on everyone without distinction. There is a specific type of person that God tests through extended seasons of unexplained pressure, a specific kind of soul He places in the refiner's fire without announcing what He is doing, without offering a timeline, without even confirming that this is a test at all. And these are not the people He has abandoned. These are the people He is preparing. Because here is what very few people understand about divine preparation. The assignments God reserves for certain lives cannot be handed to someone who hasn't already proven something crucial. They cannot be given to someone who breaks under sustained silence. They cannot be given to someone who becomes bitter when things refuse to move on their own timeline. They cannot be given to someone who abandons who they truly are when the pressure becomes high enough. The assignment requires the character, and the character can only be built one way. Think about Joseph. He was thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused of something he never did, and imprisoned for years, and not once, across all of that time, did God announce what was happening. There was no explanation offered. There was no vision showing him the palace at the end of the pit. He was simply in it, choosing faithfully, day after day, in the dark, with no confirmation that any of it was leading anywhere at all. Think about David, anointed as king by the prophet Samuel himself, then sent back to the sheep, back to the fields, back to the years of waiting that looked, from the outside, like nothing was happening and nothing had changed. The calling had been named, but the formation wasn't finished. And so God sent him back into the quiet, because what was being built in that silence could not be built anywhere else. Think about Job. No explanation was given. No warning arrived before it all began. Everything that mattered to him was removed, and the test was never announced as a test. He simply had to remain himself inside of what felt, from the inside, like complete and total devastation. The same God who walked with them through those seasons has been walking with you through this one. And I want to give you an image, one that I need you to hold as we move through the rest of this message together. A refiner of gold does not explain the process to the gold. He does not sit down with it and say, I am placing you in the fire because I see your value, because I believe in what you carry inside, and because I want to release your full purity into the world. He simply places it in the fire, watches it carefully and without distraction, and removes it at precisely the right moment, not a second too late, and not a second too early. The fire is not punishment. The fire is the process, and the fire is proof that what is inside was worth refining in the first place. Chosen one, the fire you walked through this season was not punishment, it was proof. And now I want to show you what it was proving, because once you see these 5 tests clearly, you are going to recognize every single one of them from your own life. And when you do, something is going to shift inside of you that words can barely describe. The first test is the test of silence. It didn't come to you looking like a test. It came looking like spiritual dryness, like a season where your prayers felt hollow, where the connection that used to feel immediate and clear now felt like reaching towards something just slightly out of reach, like static where there used to be signal. You kept praying, but it felt different than before. The words were the same, but the warmth was quieter. And the longer that silence stretched, the more you found yourself wondering, did I do something wrong? Have I missed something? Has something shifted that I don't have the language to name? That silence was not absence. That was the test. The real question being asked of you was this: will you remain faithful to God when He gives you no confirmation? Not when you feel His presence clearly, not when the answers come quickly and the signs are obvious, but when the line goes quiet and you cannot feel what you used to feel. Will you stay? You stayed. You kept reaching towards something you couldn't feel the way you once could. And that quiet, unwitnessed faithfulness in the silence is one of the rarest things a soul can demonstrate to the one who is watching. The second test is the test of people. Your relational landscape shifted this season in ways that didn't follow clean or logical patterns. Someone you counted on stepped back without much of an explanation. Someone you didn't expect became more present in your life. A community changed shape. A dynamic that had been stable for years quietly became something different. People moved in ways that felt confusing, sometimes painful, sometimes simply unexplained, and underneath all of it, the question being asked was this: will you trust the reorganizing, or will you grip tightly to what is being removed? Will you let what needs to leave without poisoning it on its way out? You held yourself back from bitterness. You didn't destroy the people who stepped away. You didn't burn down what was being released. You stayed open to the reorganizing, even when it cost you something real. That is not a small thing. That is passing the test. The third test is the test of provision. This one is quiet and persistent, and it tends to sit just below the surface of everything else. The thing you were waiting for financially, professionally, in terms of recognition or opportunity, it didn't arrive in the window you had hoped for. Doors that seemed like they should have opened stayed closed. Prayers over specific needs were met with a silence that felt like the longest kind of waiting. And through all of it, the question underneath was this: will you remain generous and grateful when your own needs feel unmet? Will you continue to give when you are still waiting to receive? Will you hold on to a belief in abundance when your immediate circumstances are showing you scarcity? If you did, and I believe that you did, you have just demonstrated something that cannot be faked. You have shown that your faithfulness is not conditional on what you are receiving in return. The fourth test is the test of identity. This is the most subtle of all 5, and in many ways the most dangerous. It doesn't arrive as an obvious attack. It comes as a kind of slow, gentle pressure, sometimes from the people around you, sometimes from the circumstances pressing in. sometimes from something inside yourself to become a version of yourself that is slightly smaller, slightly more agreeable, slightly less true. To adjust yourself to rooms that weren't built for who you actually are, to shrink just enough that others can be more comfortable. The question being asked was this: can you remain who you actually are when everything around you is working to reshape you? You are still recognizable as yourself. Your voice is still yours. You didn't become someone you would need to apologize for or explain away later. You held the shape of who you are under pressure that was specifically designed to change it. That is the test of identity, and you held your ground. The fifth test is the test of timing. You watched other people move forward while your own movement felt stalled. You felt the pull, that quiet, insistent pull to force something, to manufacture the breakthrough yourself, rather than wait for what needed to arrive in its own time. You felt comparison pressing in from the sides, that low ache of watching everyone else seem to advance while you stood in what felt like the same place. And the question was this: will you trust the pace that has been set for you, even when you cannot understand it? You stayed in your lane. You didn't force the doors. You didn't manufacture what needed to come naturally. You kept moving at the pace given to you, even when that pace looked, from the outside, like standing still. 5 tests, none of them announced, all of them disguised as ordinary life. Now here is what I need you to hear, because this is where most people misunderstand completely what it means to pass. Passing these tests did not mean doing them perfectly. It did not mean doing them gracefully. It did not mean you never doubted, never cried, never had a moment where something inside you came very close to breaking. God does not grade on elegance. He does not subtract points because you struggled. He does not mark you down for the nights you questioned, for the mornings you reached toward him with nothing left but desperation, for the times your faith looked less like peaceful surrender and more like someone gripping a rope in the dark with everything they had left. He measures one thing: did you stay? Did you stay present, even when nothing around you made sense? Did you stay connected, even when the connection felt like static? Did you stay true to who you are at your core, even when the pressure was doing everything it could to make you into someone smaller? Here is the evidence. You are still here. You are still seeking. You have not abandoned the path. You have not become what this season could have made. You become bitter, closed, faithless, diminished. You are the same person who entered this season, only deeper, only more certain, in a quiet way, about what you are and what you are not. The refiner does not ask the gold to enjoy the fire. He simply asks that it remain gold. You remained. And what that means, what it actually means for your life right now, is something I am going to show you in the second part of this message. Because what passing these tests unlocks is bigger than most people expect, and I want you to be ready to receive it. Chosen one, let me tell you what it actually means that you passed, not in vague, encouraging terms, not in the kind of language that sounds good, but lands without weight. I want to tell you specifically in a way that will change how you understand this entire season and everything that is coming next. When God tests someone in disguise, hidden inside the ordinary, without announcement and without witness, he is not looking for a performance. He is not watching to see if you can act the right way under pressure while knowing you are being observed. Anyone can do that. Performance can be practiced, rehearsed, refined. What he is looking for can only be revealed when you don't know you are being watched. He is looking for what is actually in you, not what you are capable of when conditions are ideal, not what you can produce when the evidence is clear and the reward is visible. What you are made of at the level beneath all of that, at the level of character, which is simply who you are when no one is watching and nothing is at stake. And what he found in you during these months, what the silence and the pressure and the unanswered prayers and the unexplained losses revealed, is that you can be trusted. That is not a small thing. That is the thing. Because here is what most people never understand about the way God moves in a life. Certain blessings cannot be placed in the hands of someone who hasn't been proven. not because God is withholding them arbitrarily, but because they would break in the hands of someone who isn't ready for them, because the weight of what is coming requires the character that was built in what just passed. Think of it this way. A building can only rise as high as its foundation is deep, and the foundation is never the visible part. The foundation is the part that gets poured in the dark, under the surface, in the places no one looks at and no one photographs. The foundation is formed before anything beautiful becomes possible. What was happening in you during this season, all of it, the silence and the waiting and the quiet choices no one witnessed, that was the foundation being poured. And now, something is about to be built on top of it. The passing of these tests has unlocked 3 things in your life. I want you to hear each of them. The first is character, not the word, the actual thing. You have been formed at a level of depth that cannot be taught in a classroom, cannot be imparted through a sermon, cannot be downloaded through good intentions alone. The patience you developed in the silence that is now part of you, the integrity you maintained when no one was watching, that is now yours permanently. The faithfulness you chose without reward, you cannot lose that. It is woven into who you are now, and whoever you were before this season, you are not that person anymore. You are deeper, and that depth is yours to keep. The second is clearance. Some assignments carry a level of authority and visibility and influence that cannot be placed on an unproven soul, not because God doesn't want to give it, but because the soul would not survive the weight of it without first being formed for it. You have just received a clearance you did not have before this season, a level of trust that was not granted before the testing and could not have been granted before the testing. What comes next in your life is going to require exactly the version of you that just came out of this fire, not the version that went in. The third is readiness. The doors that are about to open, the relationships that are about to shift toward you, the opportunities that are going to become available, they are not the same kind of thing that was available before this season. They are larger, they require more, and they have been held in reserve until the moment when the person who was supposed to receive them was ready. You are ready. The gold that comes out of the refiner's fire is not the same gold that went in. It is the same substance, but purified, refined, made more valuable by the very process that looked, from the outside, like destruction. Chosen one, you came out of that fire, and what came out is worth more than what went in. Now I want to speak to something, because there is an obstacle that tends to appear right here at exactly this moment for people who have just come through a season like this, and I want to name it before it quietly undermines everything I have just said. The obstacle is doubt, a very specific kind of doubt. It is the voice that says, "But did I actually pass, or am I just hearing this because I want it to be true? I struggled so much in there. I doubted. I came apart at least once. I wasn't graceful about any of it. How can I claim that I passed when I know exactly how many times I nearly didn't?" I hear that voice, and I want to answer it directly. Here is the irony of the chosen one's doubt. The people who pass the tests are always the ones least confident that they passed. Always, because they were inside it. They felt every moment of weakness. They have a detailed inner record of every time they were less than they wanted to be. The people who are most confidently certain they passed, who feel no uncertainty, no humility, no awareness of their own struggle, those are often the ones who were never truly tested at all. Your doubt is not evidence that you failed. Your doubt is evidence that you were actually in there, that it was real, that you carried it with the kind of seriousness and self-awareness that the test was designed to produce. And there is something else underneath the doubt that I want to reach. Some of you are not just doubting whether you passed. You are wondering whether you deserve what comes next, whether this is really for you. Whether someone like you, with your specific history, your particular failures, your very clear memory of all the ways you fell short, whether someone like you is actually meant for what I am describing. Let me say this as plainly as I can. You did not earn what is coming in the way that a paycheck is earned. This is not a transaction. This is not God calculating your performance and delivering the equivalent in blessings. That is not how this works. But you were proven. And being proven is different from being perfect. God is not looking for perfect, He is looking for faithful. And faithfulness, the quiet, unspectacular, no one will ever know kind, is exactly what the past months have confirmed in you. You are not receiving what comes next because you deserved it by being flawless. You are receiving it because you proved you would carry it faithfully. And that distinction matters more than you know. Now there is one more thing I want to share with you before we move into the final part of this message. Something that connects directly to what was happening in your mind and your body during this season. Not just spiritually, but in a very real, very physical way. Because here is something that neuroscience has been documenting for decades, and most people never hear about it. When the human brain is under sustained pressure, extended periods of uncertainty, silence, emotional weight, the kind of ongoing stress that a testing season produces, something very specific happens to how the brain functions. The neural frequencies associated with clarity, with intuition, with that feeling of being in flow, what neuroscientists call gamma brainwaves, they get suppressed, they go quiet. Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years of research behind him, drawing on studies from institutions like Princeton, Harvard, MIT, and Stanford, has documented what he calls the decline effect. Children are born with gamma activity that is strong and natural. They learn quickly, their intuition is sharp, their creativity flows easily. But beginning around age 7, the pressures of modern life, the systems we are placed in, the stress we absorb, begin to suppress that activity. And by adulthood, most people are operating at a fraction of the gamma capacity they were born with. A season like the one you just came through accelerates that suppression, which means that the spiritual dryness you felt, the difficulty hearing clearly, the brain fog, the sense that your internal signal was running on low, that was not just spiritual, that was neurological. Your brain, under that sustained pressure, was literally operating below its natural capacity. And here is the good news. That is reversible. Dr. Lake developed a 7-minute audio track that uses a technology called brain entrainment to reactivate gamma frequencies. You put on a pair of headphones, you close your eyes, you listen for 7 minutes. That is it. No meditation practice required, no mantra, no years of training. The technology does the work at the level of the brain itself. Now, I want to be honest with you, because I think honesty is more valuable than hype. This is not a miracle, this is a tool. A scientifically grounded tool, backed by research from some of the most respected institutions in the world, used by over 18,000 people, but still a tool. What it does is support the process you are already in. It helps restore the neurological clarity that a season of sustained pressure can suppress. To give you a sense of scale, activating gamma through traditional biofeedback therapy costs around $300 per session. The home equipment designed to do something similar runs closer to $7,000. This is 7 minutes a day through a simple audio track. The original price is $49, but Dr. Lake has made it available to people watching this video for $39, a price you will not find anywhere else. Not on Amazon, not on Spotify, not anywhere other than the link I have left in the description and the pinned comment below this video. I need to say one more thing about this, because it matters. There are counterfeit versions of this product circulating on other platforms, websites that use the name, but have not embedded the actual brain entrainment technology. They are just audio files. They do nothing. The only way to be certain you are receiving the genuine product with the full technology, the 4 bonus materials, and the complete money-back guarantee is through the link I have personally left below. Do not search for it elsewhere. The link below is the only safe path to the real thing. If this feels like the right next step for where you are right now, it is there for you. And now, I want to speak to something that I believe you need to hear. Something about who you are. Because coming out of a season like this, it is easy to define yourself by what you survived rather than by what you have become. I want to shift that. You are a spiritual warrior. Not the dramatic kind. Not the kind who fights loudly and displays their strength for others to see. The real kind, the one who holds their ground quietly when the pressure is high, who does not collapse under sustained weight, who stands in the fire and remains standing. You proved this during these months. Not with a weapon, with endurance, with presence, with the refusal to become something smaller than you are. That is not performance, that is identity. You are a truth carrier. There is something in you that cannot live inauthentically for long. It is not stubbornness. It is something deeper, a commitment to what is real that surfaces even when the cost of being real is high. The season you just walked through tested that commitment in every direction, and the truth in you survived. That truth is not just yours to keep. It is yours to bring into spaces that have been waiting for it. You are a seer. You perceive what others move past without noticing. Patterns, meanings, connections that most people don't stop long enough to see. The fact that you are here, in this moment, receiving this particular message that is not accidental. Something in you recognized that this was meant for you. That is the seer, still working, even at the end of a hard season. You are a cycle breaker. What you refused to become in this season, bitter, closed, faithless, small, that refusal broke something. Not just in your own story. In a pattern that may have run in your family, in your history, in the line behind you for longer than you know. You chose differently. And that different choice ripples forward in ways you cannot yet see. And you are a wounded healer. The pain of this season is not going to stay as only pain. That is not how God works with the people He is preparing. What you carried, the silence, the waiting, the invisible weight of being tested without knowing you were being tested, that is being transformed into something that will one day reach someone else who is in the middle of their own version of it. Your wounds are already becoming wisdom, and that wisdom has a name on it that isn't only yours. This is who you are. This is who you came out of this season as. And I want to give you 2 things to carry with you from this moment forward. The first is a practice for recognizing disguised tests before they catch you off guard again. There are 3 markers. When all 3 are present in a situation, slow down and pay attention. The first marker, there is no clear explanation for why this difficulty is happening. The second marker, there is a quiet choice inside the situation, a choice about who you are, about your character, about your integrity, that no one else will be able to see. The third marker, only you will know what you decided. When you notice all 3 markers, before you react, pause and ask yourself one question. What is the real question being asked of me here? Not what is the situation demanding, what is the question underneath the situation? Because disguised tests always have a deeper question inside them. And once you can hear the question, you can answer it with intention rather than just surviving it in the dark. The second practice is simpler, and I want you to begin it today. In the morning, before the noise of the day comes in, before you step into anything that requires you to perform or produce, speak one sentence out loud. One sentence that is true about you, confirmed by what you just walked through. You do not need to invent something you don't believe. Just name something that the season proved. Something like, I am someone who stayed faithful when God went quiet. I am someone who can be trusted with what comes next. That is not wishful thinking. That is testimony. That is you speaking back to yourself what the refiner's fire just confirmed. Do it every morning, not because it will create something new, because it will remind you of what is already true. And now, one final thing. Let me speak to you one more time about where you are standing right now. You came into this season without knowing it was a test. You walked through it without knowing you were passing. And you came out the other side without fully knowing yet what it has qualified you for. But now you know, the season is behind you. What is ahead is different in kind, in magnitude, and in the quality of grace that is available to carry you through it. The relationships that are coming are not the same as the ones that left. The doors that are about to open are not the same as the ones that stayed closed. What God is bringing toward you now is calibrated to the person who just came out of the fire, not the person who went in. I want to speak a blessing over you now, and I need you to receive it, not as nice words, but as something that is actually true about your life. In the area of your relationships, the ones who needed to leave have left. That clearing was not loss, it was preparation. And the people who are meant to walk with you in this next chapter, they are already in motion toward your life. You don't need to chase them or manufacture them or prove yourself worthy of them. You simply need to remain open. God has been working on both sides of that connection. In the area of your purpose, what you are being prepared to do is larger than what you would have been able to carry 6 months ago. The formation that happened in this season was not random. It was directly tied to the scale of what is coming. You were being made ready for something specific, and you are more ready than you know. In the area of provision, the doors that have not yet opened are not locked against you. They are on a timeline that is held by someone with more information than you currently have. Your trust in that timeline, your choice to remain faithful without forcing, was itself one of the tests, and you passed it. Chosen one, I want to say something to you that I want to be the last thing you carry out of this message. You did not just survive a hard season, you were refined by it. You went into the fire as gold, and you came out as something that has been proven, tested, purified, and made ready for what the refiner always intended. The weight you carried during these months, it is not being wasted. It is not being filed away and forgotten. It is being woven into the foundation of everything that comes next. You passed. Not barely, not with conditions, not almost. You passed every single test that was placed in front of you, in the silence, in the waiting, in the unanswered prayers, and the unexplained delays, and the quiet choices no one witnessed. God saw every single one. Go now, not back to who you were, not back to the weight of the season you just came through. Forward, into what you have been refined for, into what you have been proven worthy of, into the chapter that could only begin on the other side of this one. The tests are behind you. The assignment is ahead. Chosen one, you passed.